Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the exact moment an ex changes their mind. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing the exact moment an ex changes their mind. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will be looking for the moment your ex changes their mind. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing the exact moment an ex changes their mind, as well as 2 prior signs to look out for. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is sign number 1. So this is the first sign to look out for on the road to the point where your ex may change their mind. And the first sign to look out for is a date on the calendar, and that is 6 months since you last had contact. Now, this doesn't matter whether it was a text, whether it was in person, whether it was a call. When it has been 6 months since you last communicated with your ex, this is a very important sign. And the reason why I say it's an important sign is that from my research, 6 months is the average amount of time that a dumper may decide that they want to reach out to their dumpee. Now, of course, this doesn't mean it happens in every instance. I mean, it's important to say that there is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But from my research, the 6-month mark is the average amount of time that a dumper will reach out to their dumpee. Now, this might not fit precisely with your situation. You might be somebody who has been dumped, and you receive contact after 3 months, or after 3 weeks, or even after 3 days. Or it could be the other side of the mark. It could be 9 months, it could be a year, it could be even longer than that. And unfortunately, some people will never hear from their ex again. But when I say the average, I'm talking about the mode average, the most common average amount of time around that point of when a dumper will reach out to a dumpee is in and around the 6-month mark. So when we're looking for signs of when your ex might change their mind, it's important to look on that calendar. When was the last time you spoke to your ex? When was the last time you made contact? Because if it's been in and around 6 months, this is a moment where you're entering that average period. Now, it doesn't mean that your ex won't contact you if they don't contact you bang on 6 months. As I said, that's the average. It doesn't mean that you might not hear from them in the future. But it is something to say to yourself, okay, I'm now in the realm of possibility where this is becoming a little bit more likely. Because if you've only been dumped 2 weeks ago and you're wondering why you haven't heard from your ex, well, that's because you're not likely to. If it's in and around 6 months, this is when your chances are starting to lift, you could say, because you're moving within that time frame of when your ex may have started to reconsider their thoughts and why they might reach out to you. Now, this is connected in part to the single honeymoon period. And the single honeymoon period is something that dumpers go through when they end a relationship. They start living their life in a way that they couldn't from when they was in your relationship. So whatever they may have felt within your relationship was not quite working, or things that they felt they was missing out on, or things that you can't even believe they're saying or thinking or wanting to do, but this is when they have that moment to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were stopping them, but it might just mean that they felt that they couldn't do certain things because they didn't have the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were literally saying, look, don't do this, but it could include that as well. So when your dumper ended the relationship, when they went through the single honeymoon period, this is when you could say that clock starts. However, we have to include the fact that if you were to be reaching out to your ex during this time, then each time you do, there is an opportunity for your ex to be almost resetting that clock. This isn't an exact science, But I would say generally speaking, but a dumper will go through 6 to 12 months, probably on average around 6 months of this single honeymoon period, where they're living their life in a different kind of way, to the point where they might start to self-reflect after they come out the other side of that single honeymoon period. And like I said, this is why it connects somewhat with the 6-month mark of where they might decide to reach out to you. But, like I said, if you've been breaking no contact, if you've been reaching out to your ex, there is a chance that your ex dumper may almost be resetting that clock each and every time you do, because they're starting to think, well, I don't have to worry about my dumpee, I know they're always there for me, so I'm not going to miss them. Now, of course, this isn't something which they're consciously thinking, it's subconscious. They're not consciously thinking, right, my dumpee's text me, so let me restart that clock. No, it doesn't work like that. But if you keep reaching out, they'll be thinking to themselves, I don't need to miss my dumpee. I know they're there waiting for me. And if they don't miss you, then they won't want to reach out for you in a romantic sense. So this is where the single honeymoon period and my version of a no contact rule go hand in hand to why I believe a 6-month mark is the average amount of time for why most dumpers seem to be reaching out in and around this period. So when we consider point number 1, sign number 1 for when your ex might be changing their mind, check the calendar and see if it's been 6 months since you was last in contact. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about the exact moment an ex changes their mind. And point number 2 is sign number 2. And the second sign that they might be on the verge of changing their mind is circumstances changing. Now, what do I mean by circumstances changes? Well, your ex will likely have got into a new pattern of behaviour since the breakup. Like I said, this could be referred to as the single honeymoon period. This could be referred to as them living their life on their own journey, on their own path. Now, if you were to find out that these new circumstances have since changed, then this could be a good sign. Like I said in point number 1, this could be the moment that they have left the single honeymoon period. But how would you find out about if their circumstances have changed once more? The last thing I want to be suggesting to you is to try and keep tabs on your ex. That is not a good and healthy way to behave. It's not fair on your ex, whether you think they deserve your fairness or not. You shouldn't be looking up, chasing up, stalking. You shouldn't be doing any of these things, of course. But not only is it not good or fair to your ex, it's not good or fair to yourself. It's not good for your mental health. It will drive you crazy. You'll be thinking of your ex 24/7. It is a pattern of behaviour which is destructive and is going to disrupt your life from living it in the best way. So no, I don't suggest that you try and check up on your ex. So how could you find out that their new circumstances have since changed? Well, this would have to come from different means. Friends of friends. Maybe there's a situation that you just come across but you realise that your ex's situation has changed. For example, maybe you know that they've gone into further education. Maybe you know that they've been working away. Maybe you know that rather than a single honeymoon period being this period of time where they're doing their own kind of thing, maybe it was connected to education, maybe it was connected to work, maybe it was connected to travel. Maybe they'd said to you that I want to travel the world, and you said, well, I don't, and this is why they ended the relationship. But you knew from that point that after around 6 months or so, maybe longer, maybe less, whatever it may be, that they would be returning home at a certain point. Maybe they're going to be travelling for a year. Okay, they travel for a year, and therefore without checking their social media, without trying to stalk them or anything, you just know that a year later they will be back where they used to live. They'll be back in the area perhaps where you live as well. This is where things could play into your hands, because like the single honeymoon period, if and when your ex's circumstances change, this is when they may begin to reflect. So whether or not it's connected to the breakup and going through their own path because they want to go on the single honeymoon period, or whether it's connected to something which is almost to the side of this, like they had to work away, and this is why the breakup took place, because it just couldn't work in your two's minds. Maybe they wanted to go into further education, and they had to go to college or something, the other end of the country. These, again, are reasons which a breakup might take place, but they're not actually connected to a single honeymoon period per se, but you could also know when this will be coming to an end. Maybe you're told something. Maybe you're told that your ex's circumstances are changing by a friend of a friend. Maybe you legitimately and innocently bump into information on social media. You're not looking for it, you're not stalking them, but you just come across it. Okay, this is where you can find out in a healthy way, and you can understand for your benefit that their circumstances are changing. If your ex-dumper's circumstances are changing, this is when they might self-reflect, because this is the moment that we do. When we have gone from one situation to another, we're going to reflect on our life right now. We're going to think about the past. We're going to wonder about the people who used to be within our life, but maybe in recent times they've not actually been a big player in our life. We will be thinking about them, wondering about them, and that could easily be you. Now, if you want to increase the chance of getting your ex back, if you want one-on-one advice about your specific unique situation, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about the exact moment an ex changes their mind. And point number 3 is the exact moment. So now we're getting to the exact moment that an ex will change their mind if they get to this point. And if and when this will happen will be at the moment of when your life seems like it's going further forward than theirs. Now that might sound a bit of a mouthful, so let's break that down. The exact moment, if we could almost intersect it on a graph, is when your ex-dumper believes that your life seems to be going forward further. When your life seems to be going forward in a better direction with more trajectory than their life. If they could compare your life and they think it's going better than theirs, this is the exact moment an ex can change their mind. When they feel that they're missing out, when they feel they've made a mistake, when they feel that the thing they let go, i.e. you, are doing better without them. When they believe that their life has stalled, their life is going in a direction which is not as fulfilling as they hoped, and they find out that your life is going through the roof on an upward trajectory, which is very, very exciting. This is the exact moment their ex can change their mind. It's the exact moment where they think to themselves, I've made a mistake. I should have stayed with my ex. I should have given them a chance. I should have given them opportunity to grow, because my life has not gone how I hoped. Their life has gone much better than I predicted. And I imagine that they are going to be achieving things, meeting new people, and living their life in a way that I'm not going to be able to unless I try and reconnect with them. Now, if you're a dumpee and you're thinking, well, how can I get to this point? You can only control the controllables. And when I say control the controllables, this means in this instance, you need to focus on you. You need to live your life to the full. You need to be making those new connections that your ex-dumper might be wondering about now. You need to be focusing on becoming a version 2.0 of yourself. You can only control the controllables. You can't control when they feel that their life isn't as fulfilling as yours. But what you can control is making sure that your life is as fulfilling as possible, growing as high as possible, as exciting as possible, achieving as much as possible. Because if you do this, then if and when your ex reflects, they will come to a conclusion that your life is doing better than theirs. And that is the exact moment that a dumper will start to change their mind and decide that maybe I want my ex back. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.